Roc Ja Province, Mekong Delta, October 1967. The moon has abandoned them. 8 men crouch in water that stinks of rot and death, their faces painted in green and black, their hearts hammering against their ribs. The jungle breathes around them, wet, alive, and hostile. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, 200 Viet Cong soldiers are waiting. And Petty Officer Second Class Danny Kerrigan, 23 years old, 3 months in country, and carrying the weight of a dead brother's legacy, is about to discover what he's truly made of. But first, he has to survive the next 15 minutes. This is a story about fear, about proving yourself to men who've already written you off, about the thin, trembling line between heroism and survival, and about the longest night in one SEAL platoon's history. Danny Kerrigan never wanted to be a SEAL. He wanted to be his brother. Michael Kerrigan had been everything Danny wasn't. Tall, confident, the kind of man who walked into a room and owned it. Michael had graduated top of his buds class in 1965. By 66, he was running operations in the Delta that even senior officers whispered about with respect. By February 1967, he was dead. An ambush near Kamau. Bad intel. Michael's entire squad wiped out in under 4 minutes. Danny was finishing his sophomore year at Notre Dame when the telegram arrived. He can still remember his mother's scream, a sound that split their house in half like an axe through wood. 3 weeks later, Danny dropped out and enlisted. The instructors at Buds knew his name immediately. They watched him with curious eyes, waiting to see if the Kerrigan blood ran true. It didn't seem to. Danny was smaller than Michael, quieter. He didn't lead, he followed. He passed every evolution, but never excelled. The instructors called him adequate. His classmates called him shadow. And when he arrived at SEAL Team 2's Vietnam detachment in July 1967, Lieutenant Commander Thomas Blackjack Rains took one look at his file, then one look at his face, and said 4 words that would haunt Danny for months. "You're not your brother." The platoon called themselves the Night Stalkers, 8 men who had learned to move through the Delta's waterways like ghosts. Blackjack Rains was their commanding officer, 41 years old, Korean War veteran, a man whose face looked like it had been carved from the same teak wood as the sampans they hunted. He'd lost 3 men in his last deployment, and something had calcified behind his eyes ever since. He didn't tolerate weakness. He didn't tolerate excuses. And he absolutely did not tolerate operators who were here to find themselves. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb was Blackjack's right hand, a massive black man from rural Georgia who spoke rarely but saw everything. He'd served with Michael Kerrigan. He never mentioned it to Danny. The silence said enough. Then there was Luis Demon Delgado, the point man, fast, feral, with a smile that never reached his eyes. Joey Carlisle, the radio man, whose hands never shook no matter how bad things got. Hal Peterson, the grenadier, who told jokes that made men groan even under fire. Terry O'Donnell, the corpsman, who had a photograph of his twin daughters tucked inside his helmet. And finally, Sergeant First Class Robert Crane, the oldest enlisted man who served 3 tours and claimed he could smell ambushes before they happened. 8 men, 1 platoon, and Danny Kerrigan standing among them like a ghost who hadn't yet realized he was dead. The mission came down on October 14, 1967. Intelligence had identified a high-value target, a Viet Cong province-level cadre named Nguyen Van Tha, responsible for coordinating weapons shipments from Cambodia into the Delta. CIA wanted him captured, MACV wanted him dead. The SEALs were told to make a choice once they had eyes on. The insertion point was 12 kilometers upriver, a narrow canal that snaked through some of the most contested jungle in Vietnam. Blackjack gathered the team in the cramped briefing hut, the air thick with cigarette smoke and tension. Intel says minimal security. He tapped the map. 15 to 20 VC. We go in fast, grab the target, extract by boat. Danny studied the map. Something bothered him. The canal was narrow, hemmed in by dense vegetation on both sides. Perfect ambush territory. He almost spoke up. Almost. But then Blackjack's eyes swept across him, cold, dismissive, and Danny swallowed his words. Demon Delgado grinned. 15 VC? Hell, LT, that's a Tuesday. The room laughed. Danny did not. They inserted at 0100 hours. The night was black. No moon, no stars, just a blanket of darkness so thick it felt physical. The 2 SEAL Team assault boats cupped their engines a kilometer out, and the men paddled the rest of the way in silence. Danny sat near the bow, his Stoner 63 light machine gun resting across his thighs. His hands were sweating despite the cool air. He could feel Chief Webb's eyes on his back, judging, always judging. The canal narrowed. Mangroves pressed in from both sides, their roots tangling into the water like skeletal fingers. The air smelled of decay, vegetation rotting, water stagnating, something dead somewhere nearby. Crane leaned forward, his nostrils flaring. "Smoke," he whispered. Everyone froze. Blackjack signaled a halt. The boats drifted. For 30 seconds, no one breathed. Then, faint, almost imperceptible, the smell of cook fires. Multiple fires. Danny's stomach dropped. 15 to 20 VC didn't need multiple cook fires. They found the camp at 0147. But it wasn't a camp. It was a staging area. Through the vegetation, Danny counted fires. 10, 15, more. Figures moving in the darkness, stacked crates of weapons, rows of sampans. He felt the blood drain from his face as the scope of the deception became clear. This was not a small cadre hideout. This was a battalion assembly point. "Sweet Jesus," Joey Carlyle breathed. Crane's voice came low and tense. "I count 200, maybe more." Blackjack's jaw tightened. For the first time since Danny had known him, the lieutenant commander looked uncertain. "We pull back," he said, slowly, no contact. It was the right call. It would have worked if they hadn't already been surrounded. The first shots came from behind. Danny didn't hear them, he felt them. The air splitting apart inches from his head, bark exploding from trees, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness like hellish strobes. "Contact rear!" Then the sides opened up.
VC were everywhere, emerging from spider holes, dropping from trees, rising from the water itself. The jungle that had seemed empty seconds ago was now alive with gunfire and screaming. Hal Peterson went down first. A bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him into the water. Terry O'Donnell dragged him behind a root cluster, blood already staining the murk. "We're pinned," Demon shouted. "LT, we are pinned." Danny didn't think. He moved. His Stoner roared to life, spitting 5.56 rounds in controlled bursts. He advanced, not retreating, advancing towards the heaviest concentration of fire, screaming as he went. The VC hadn't expected aggression. They expected 8 trapped men to cower. They didn't expect a machine gunner running straight at them. Later, the surviving VC would tell their interrogators about the man they called Conquid Dean, The crazy demon. A small American with a big gun who charged their position alone, his weapon never stopping, his voice never breaking. They said he killed 15 men in under a minute. Danny doesn't remember. What he remembers is the fear, cold and absolute, and the strange calm that descended over him when he stopped thinking and started acting. He remembers the weight of the stoner, the heat radiating from the barrel. He remembers stepping over bodies without looking down. And he remembers the moment he realized his magazine was empty. He was standing in the middle of a VC position, surrounded by the dead, with 50 more enemies closing in. He was going to die. Then he heard Chief Webb's voice behind him. "Kerrigan, down!" Danny dropped. Webb's shotgun roared over his head, cutting down 3 VC who had been seconds from killing him. Webb grabbed Danny's vest, hauling him backward. Their eyes met, and for the first time, Danny saw something other than judgment in the chief's face. He saw respect. The next 4 hours would become legend. 8 SEALs, surrounded by nearly 200 Viet Cong, fighting from a position no larger than a basketball court. Blackjack took command with cold efficiency, directing fire, conserving ammunition, orchestrating a defense that military academies would later study. Joey Carlyle, despite a bullet grazed to his neck, kept the radio alive, calling for support, vectoring in air assets that couldn't find them in the darkness. The VC attacked in waves. The SEALs held. Danny and Webb fought side by side, their weapons complementing each other. Webb's shotgun devastating at close range, Danny's stoner covering the gaps. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Crane took a round through the thigh but kept fighting from his back, his rifle propped against a root. Demon Delgado moved through the perimeter like a phantom, appearing wherever the line was weakest, his knife as active as his rifle. O'Donnell saved 3 lives that night, including Peterson's, working on wounds by touch alone because any light would draw fire. And Blackjack Rains stood in the open, deliberately, drawing fire to himself so his men could reposition. At 0435, Joey Carlyle finally got through. Seawolf gunships inbound, ETA 15 minutes. 15 minutes. An eternity. The VC knew their window was closing. They mounted one final desperate assault, every remaining fighter, coming from every direction at once. Danny Stoner jammed. He tried to clear it, fingers slick with blood and sweat, but the mechanism was fouled. He was defenseless. A VC soldier emerged from the smoke 3 feet away, AK raised. Time stopped. Danny saw the man's face. Young, maybe younger than him. Terrified. Determined. And then Marcus Webb stepped between them. The AK fired. Webb absorbed the burst with his body, staggering but not falling. His shotgram came up one final time. The VC dropped. Webb dropped. Danny caught him before he hit the water. "Chief! Chief!" Webb's eyes were already fading, but he managed to speak. 3 words, each one costing him something precious. Michael would be proud. He died in Danny's arms. The Seawolf gunships arrived at 0402. Their miniguns turned the jungle into a killing field, shredding the remaining VC, lighting up the darkness with tracers and explosions. By 0430, the surviving SEALs were aboard extraction boats heading back to base. Danny sat in the stern, Webb's body beside him. He hadn't let go since the chief fell. His hands were still covered in Webb's blood. Blackjack approached slowly. The lieutenant commander's uniform was torn, his face streaked with dirt and powder residue. He looked 20 years older than he had the night before. He sat down next to Danny. For a long moment, neither man spoke. "I was wrong about you." Danny didn't respond. "Your brother, Michael,
was one of the best operators I ever knew. Brave, skilled, natural leader. He paused. You're not him. Danny finally looked up, anger flashing in his eyes. Blackjack met his gaze steadily. You're different. And tonight, different was what we needed. Another pause. Marcus saw it before I did. He told me last week you had something your brother didn't. What? Danny's voice was raw. Blackjack looked at Webb's body. Heart.
The after-action report would credit the 8-man SEAL team with over 70 confirmed enemy KIA. They had disrupted a major VC offensive, though they never knew it at the time. Joey Carlisle and Hal Peterson received Purple Hearts. Crane walked with a limp for the rest of his life. Terry O'Donnell's twin daughters never knew how close they came to losing their father. Marcus Webb was posthumously awarded the Navy Cross. Blackjack Rains put Banny in for the Silver Star. The recommendation read, Petty Officer Kerrigan's actions under fire were directly responsible for breaking the enemy's initial assault and enabling the platoon's survival. Danny never wore the medal. He kept it in a box with his brother's dog tags. Danny Kerrigan served 2 more tours in Vietnam. He became the man other SEALs looked to when things went wrong. Quiet, unassuming, but absolutely reliable when the fire started. He never sought leadership. Leadership found him. In 1972, he returned home to Indiana. He visited his parents' house, sat with his mother in the same kitchen where she had screamed at that telegram 5 years earlier. He gave her Marcus Webb's Navy Cross. I can't explain why, he told her, but Michael would want you to have this too. She held it in her hands, tears streaming down her face. Did he save you? She asked. Danny thought about that night in the Delta. The water, the gunfire, Webb's final words. No, he said finally. He taught me how to save myself. Somewhere in a box in Danny Kerrigan's closet, next to a silver star and a pair of dog tags, there is a photograph. It shows 8 men in green faces standing in front of a sampan. Some are smiling, some are not. Marcus Webb stands in the back, his hand resting on Danny's shoulder, a gesture so small that you might miss it. But Danny never did. 8 men went into the jungle that night. 7 came out. But the 8 of them survived. Because in war, survival isn't just about making it home. It's about carrying the ones who didn't. This is their story. If this story moved you, take a moment to remember the men who served in places most of us will never see, fighting battles most of us will never understand. Their names deserve to be spoken. Their sacrifices deserve to be remembered. Until next time.